So here I am in the Faber archive. It's amazing to think that after writing my first poem when I was 16, as a response to the emotional trauma of being dumped by my first girlfriend, I find myself here, many years later, sharing shelf space with the many great poets of the last 100 years. My first poem was written very tragically in response to being dumped by my girlfriend, probably the same as every other 16-year-old boy. I'd been writing lyrics for my band. I had a band that was just me and my friend Dave, and once that stopped, then I was fortunate enough to be dumped by my girlfriend, and I wrote a terrible poem. Her name is also one of the Uranus's moons, so I wrote a kind of galactic metaphor where she was kind of drifting away from me behind the eclipse or something like that. Yeah, so that was my first poem as far as I can remember, and I'm glad I don't think there's any copies of it. I write poems out of an urge to kind of explore language more than anything else. I know some people write out of a desire to explore emotions, and that can happen, but for me poetry is a kind of process of almost like a crossword puzzle of discovering what you understand about language and what the possibilities of language are. So it's a kind of playground for me in which I can have fun and discover what's possible with language. My kind of approach to finding inspiration for poems is I have two approaches. One is the, I suppose, more traditional way, where if you feel inspired by something or something you really want to write about, then you go for it and you try and find a way to talk about that subject. But there's another approach that I have which is more random, and that essentially means taking a phrase that you find, I don't know, on a street sign or in a newspaper, or some words you like in a book or anything like that. You can even just open a book at random and point your finger at a phrase, and using that as the way to start a poem. So you put that at the top of the page and you just start writing. You don't worry whether the poem is going to be a work of genius or not. You're just doing it to try and discover what's in your subconscious. And often what's in your subconscious is not a great poem, but it's a great way of digging up bits of interesting language that you can then take out and use in a poem that hopefully will be good. For me at least, yeah, my process is write 9 bad poems, hope for 1 good one. Writing is supposed to be an enjoyable experience, and I like, even if a poem turns out to be something I throw away, as probably 90% of all the writing I do ends up never seeing the light of day, I'm perfectly happy with that. I don't really even think of those poems as any less important than the other poems. It's all part of one process, which is hopefully going to throw up good poems every now and then. One of the great things about poetry, although there's lots of forms and lots of ways of writing it, the fact of the matter is there are no rules, and the great poets of history have always reinvented the form and written in ways which totally rejected their predecessors. So there are no rules, and you can literally do what you want, which is the great freeing as well as the terrifying feeling of poetry. Worship. When picking your spot, look for a balance of elements. Always show respect to those wearing lower factors than you. Always check downwind before shaking out your towel. Lie back. Let the sand make a duplicate of your spine. Match your breath to the tide. Clear away all thoughts. That wasn't so tough. Let your body do the thinking. On the backs of your eyelids, you will likely see your childhood sweetheart in flames, doused in lamp oil. This is natural. Let her dance. You deepen by the hour.